Hi, I hope everyone is doing well. Now, before I dive into course content, I just want to encourage you to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. As things become more tense in the world around us with social and racial unrest and changes and unknowns with the pandemic, it's really important to make sure you're checking in with yourself to be aware of your stress, depression, or anxiety levels, and then getting the necessary help. All of these things impact your ability to learn and engage, and there are definitely resources out there to assist you. And I am more than happy to help you on this journey as well. So please make sure to reach out to me if you need to. Now, on to the micro lecture. So, for the past few weeks, you've been learning about the basics of government and one of its core functions, which is creating and implementing policy. Now we're diving into what I'm sure is a very familiar topic, which is the various branches of government, which is the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Now, as you may know, each one of these branches has a distinct function in making sure that government fulfills its goals of serving and protecting the public. As a constituent, your job is not only to understand what each branch does, but how it's actually organized, the various ways in which it's influenced, and the rules and processes that it must follow, and most importantly, how you can influence it with just more than voting, as well as the resources at your disposal from each branch. Now, by understanding all of these elements together, you have a better sense about the limitations and pathways of power each branch has in creating and facilitating civic and social innovation. But before I dive into the lecture, there's a special announcement that I want to share. And it's about a wonderful resource on campus available to CSU-LA students. So listen carefully to Paul Carter, who is the coordinator at the Cross-Cultural Centers located in the Student Union. And he's going to be giving you great insights about mentoring resources and key events coming up. So with that, enjoy Paul Carter, and then the next voice we'll hear is mine with the mini lecture. Thank you.
Greetings, I am Paul Carter, and I work with the Cross-Cultural Centers, serving as a coordinator for the Pan-African Student Resource Center. I also serve as a committee member for the Men of Color Success Network, and I'm here to talk to you today about the Cross-Cultural Centers and the Men of Color Success Network. First, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Dr. Parker for allowing me the time to share about our upcoming events. Now, with that said, let's jump into the announcements. The Men of Color Success Network is a brotherhood and community of students who identify as men of color. The Success Network promotes opportunities for identity development, brotherhood, retention, and career development. Our next meeting is taking place Wednesday, October 7th from 12 to 2 p.m. and the focus is on men and mentorship. When you join the Men of Color Success Network, you also have the opportunity to be connected with a mentor. So to join us, simply visit linktree/Men of Color Success Network and click Join the Men of Color Success Network to sign up. Next, Friday, October 9th from 1 to 2:30 p.m., the Cross-Cultural Centers host a series on combating anti-Blackness. This will be part 3 of our 4-part training, and even if you missed the previous sessions, you are more than welcome to join us. Lastly, the Pan-African Student Resource Center invites you to participate in Crew Love, a monthly mixer for students, faculty, and staff, where we celebrate and uplift Blackness and Black community. Our next edition of Crew Love is Tuesday, October 13th at 3 p.m. All are welcome. For all events and info, you can follow the Cross-Cultural Centers at the CCC at Cal State LA on Instagram. And if you have any questions or want to get to know more, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is pcarter3@calstatela.edu. Once again, I'm Paul Carter, and looking forward to connecting with you. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your class.
Greetings and congrats on getting through the first several weeks. Now that you have a basic grasp of the purpose of government and how it fulfills its mission through policy, we can now more deeply examine how specific branches of government operate to fulfill those social contracts. Our third topic, which covers the next 2 weeks, will be about the structure and function of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches and how they work to achieve the goals of government. You'll also become familiar with how you, as a constituent, can interact with each of these branches. The goal of this section is to illuminate the complexity of the various branches and how it can help move change forward or hinder it. Additionally, by understanding how you can interact with these branches, you have insights into your ability to influence them. So as you remember, this is the political landscape framework. And basically, just to make sure that you are centered and grounded for this new topic, what we're going to be focusing on are institutions, the institutional portion of this framework. And remember that institutions are the political organizations and bodies with missions and priorities. Okay, so let's get started with the structure. Now, the structure of each branch is like a blueprint that shows how it's set up. It focuses on the following dimensions: how offices and tasks are organized within each organization, the hierarchy of power within these offices, the responsibilities of people in each branch, and the rules dictating how each branch is to operate. Now, you're already familiar with the major functions of each branch as outlined in the Constitution. However, significantly more about those functions can be found through official documentation and outlines. And these things generally outline the following: the detailed and specific mission and responsibilities of each branch, the workflow in terms of how tasks get done and how those tasks are carried over from one part of the organization to the other, and then also the powers and limitations. And these powers and limitations are also dictated by rules and processes. And an example of that are the checks and balances. So let's get started with Congress. So Congress is a bicameral structure with the House of Representatives and the Senate. And they create policies and laws, and those are created by members of Congress, or MOCs, who are elected by constituents, which is you and me. So what are members of Congress influenced by? What voters want, their own bias, the sway of citizens, whether it be individual citizens or groups, their personal ideology, partisan pressure, information about the impact of a decision that they might make, the influence of a majority or minority leadership among members of Congress, the agenda of the executive branch, and smaller nonpartisan government organizations that provide information and insights. And these smaller organizations could be things like the Office of Personnel Management, Office of Management and Budget, National Science Foundation, and more. So I do encourage you to look up these organizations if you have never heard of them. Now, the executive branch. This is led by the president, and at the local and state level, that would be the equivalent to a mayor or a governor. And then the executive branch is important to remember that it's comprised of major agencies that address key areas such as health, money, labor, housing, transportation, security, and more. And they are in charge of the execution of laws and policies. The executive, which would be the president, mayor, or governor, has mandates and agendas reflecting voters and other influencers. The executive gets advice from and influences the heads of major agencies who he or she appoints. At the federal level, this group comprises the presidential cabinet. Each agency is in charge of managing and administering resources and processes necessary to implement the laws and policies approved by Congress. There are full-time and part-time civil servants who are actually hired to work at these agencies to do this. Now, the people working at these agencies must follow the law in the execution of those policies. They also work with minor agencies to get information and execute their tasks and functions. Now, although they are not elected by voters, agencies must be accessible by the public. Additionally, citizens have certain rights to use the judicial branch as a way to get justice through review of court cases. They must go through a specific process to get their cases in court. Now we have the judicial branch. Now, the judicial branch is comprised of a body of judges and judicial administrators, and they are in charge of interpreting the law. And in other words, that means they address questions of legality. So the judicial branch is structured in a federal system of various higher and lower courts, with the highest court being the Supreme Court. Rules dictate where cases are to go in the federal system and the possibilities for progressing through the higher ranks of the court system. Judges are appointed by the executive and are supposed to act in a nonpartisan way, but are nonetheless influenced by their own ways of interpretation, bias, ideology, and to a certain extent, public opinion. Each judge has his or her own staff office. Judges are supposed to interpret the law and use various ways to do that, using textualism, originalism, structuralism, and contextualism. Various types of laws exist: administrative law, civil law, constitutional law, and criminal law. Now, judges are subject to impeachment or removal from office. Okay, that is the micro lecture. So for your next steps for this week, you're to go through this lecture again, review the supplemental learning material, start the book chapter 3 and exercises. And as always, remember that the book chapter contains embedded links that provide you with more learning material that can help you, and thus you're expected to use them. And always remember to engage in conversations with your classmates on Canvas to help you learn the material more and get more ideas. And then for next week, review topic 3 material again and complete your book chapter exercises. And those are due on October 11th at 11:59 p.m. And as always, for next week, continue to use the hallway to enliven your learning experience. Thank you so much and have a great day.